boy who always wins. From the very beginning, people said that Ian was different. He wasn't taller than the other boys in his village, nor stronger. He didn't have fancy shoes or a shiny bicycle. But there was something about him, an energy, a belief, a quiet determination, that made him stand out. At school, Ian wasn't always the best student, but he had a habit of never giving up. When the teacher gave him a math problem that others couldn't solve, Ian would sit with his notebook for hours until he figured it out. When the football team lost, he was the one who said, "We'll win next time," and he meant it. No matter how many times life tried to pull him down, Ian always found a way to rise again. The beginning of winning. Ian's story started in a small town surrounded by green rice fields and dusty roads. His father was a rickshaw driver and his mother sold vegetables in the market. They didn't have much, but they gave Ian what mattered most: love, discipline, and a belief that hard work could change destiny. When Ian was 10, his school announced a spelling competition. Everyone laughed when he said he'd win. "You," said Rafi, the class topper. "You can barely spell your name right." Ian didn't argue. He just smiled. Every night after dinner, he sat under the dim yellow light, repeating words from his dictionary until he knew each one by heart. On the day of the competition, his palms were sweaty and his heart raced. But when the teacher said the final word, victory, Ian spelled it perfectly. The classroom went silent for a second, and then erupted into applause. That was the first time Ian tasted what it felt like to win, not because of luck, but because of effort. The challenge. Years passed, and Ian's desire to win grew stronger. But life also became harder. When his father fell ill, Ian had to work after school to help pay for medicine. Many boys in his situation would have dropped out, but Ian didn't. He studied between shifts, reading textbooks by the dim streetlights. One day, his teacher, Mr. Rahman, announced that a regional science fair was coming up. The winner would get a scholarship. Ian wanted that scholarship more than anything, not for pride, but for his family's future. His project idea was simple: a water filter made from cheap, natural materials that could help villagers get clean drinking water. But making it work was not easy. He spent nights experimenting, often failing. His classmates mocked him again. "You can't compete with students from the city," they said. But Ian kept going. He remembered what his father used to say: "The road to success is not straight, but every step forward is still a victory." When the day of the fair arrived, Ian stood nervously beside his small display table. Around him were expensive projects, robots, drones, solar systems, all shining under bright lights. His filter looked small and humble. But when the judges tested it, something unexpected happened. The water came out clear and pure. Ian won first prize. The scholarship was his. The lesson of losing. But even a boy who always wins must learn how to lose. When Ian went to high school in the city, he faced competition tougher than ever. His first exam score was below average. He felt crushed. For the first time, he doubted himself. Maybe they were right, he thought. Maybe I'm not good enough. He stopped talking to people, stopped smiling. Mr. Rahman, who still checked on him, visited one day and said, "Ian, do you think winning means never failing?" Ian didn't answer. The teacher continued, "Winning means getting up every time you fall. You didn't lose. You're just preparing for your next victory." Those words changed everything. Ian began studying harder than before. Slowly, his grades improved. He joined the debate club, the football team, and even helped other students. He learned that true victory isn't about beating others, it's about becoming better than who you were yesterday. The final battle. By the time Ian reached college, everyone knew him as the boy who always wins. He had medals, certificates, and trophies, but he remained humble. In his final year, the college held a national-level innovation contest. The prize was an internship at a top tech company. Ian entered with a project that used AI to predict floods in rural areas, a problem that had often destroyed his village's crops. The night before the final presentation, disaster struck. His laptop crashed, and most of his data was lost. He wanted to scream, to cry, to give up. But then he looked at the photo of his parents on the wall. He remembered the small boy who used to study under a flickering bulb, who never let failure define him. He stayed up all night, rewriting everything from memory. The next day, when he presented his project, his voice shook, but his spirit didn't. He spoke about how technology could save lives, how innovation should begin with compassion, and how no challenge was too big if one refused to give up. When the results were announced, Ian's project won first place. The true meaning of winning. Years later, Ian became a respected engineer and innovator. He helped design affordable solutions for rural communities, bringing electricity, clean water, and education to places that had been forgotten. When journalists asked him the secret behind his success, he smiled and said, "Winning isn't about trophies or medals. It's about fighting your battles, no matter how small, and never quitting, even when it hurts." He often visited his old village, meeting young kids who reminded him of his younger self. To each one, he would say, "You don't need to be born lucky. You just need to believe in your own strength." And so, the story of Ian, the boy who always wins, became more than just a story. It became a lesson. Winning is not about never falling, but about rising every single time you do.